We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Chesam and Beis in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 28b. The Gemara now is explaining the machlokas in our Mishnah in terms of until at what point in time the husband is able to annul the vows of his wife. Tana Didon Savar, the Tana of our Mishnah holds, Kevon Dizdarik alo dam, once the blood is sprinkled for one of the karbanos at the end of the term of her Naziras, so la'alter sharya b'chamra. So according to our Tana in our Mishnah, she's now permitted at that point in time, she's immediately permitted to have wine. Therefore, at this point in time already, there's nothing about the situation which is going to make her downcast. She's able to have wine, and therefore, according to the Tana, once that blood is sprinkled, the husband can no longer annul her vow. For Rabbi Akiva Savar, now Rabbi Akiva he holds, afilu ishtachitas behema, even if the animal has been slaughtered, eino yachol lahafir, he's not able to annul her vow, mishum hefsid kachim, because at that point in time, meaning even at that point in time already, by the time of the shechita, we're afraid of an issue of hefsid kachim, that the kachim is going to be a loss to hektish, and therefore once the animal is shechted, it's considered over, the term of the Naziris is considered over, and he's not able to annul the vow. Rashi over here says, "Ulatana didon kevan dizdarik alo echad min hadamim la'alter ishtarya bechamra." Again, according to the Tana of our Mishnah, when the blood is sprinkled, even for one of the karbanos, she's now permitted in wine. V'les lo nivel, therefore she's no longer downcast. V'chevan deles lo nivel eino yacholom yefshi bisha menuvelis. Once she's able to drink wine, so he can't say, "I want to annul the vow because I don't want a wife who's menuvelis." She's not menuvelis anymore. She's allowed to have wine. And again, Rabbi Akiva disagrees, and he says, "Eino yachol lahafer," even at the point of time of shechita already. Even at that point in time, it's too late for him to annul the vow. Mishum bizayon kachim. Now Rashi has the girsa here instead of the girsa of hefsid kachim, a loss to kachim. His girsa is a disgrace to kachim. Dehoel ve'ein habayla mischaprim bo. The point is, since the owners are now not going to get a kapara with this kachim anymore at this point in time, so then because if it would be annulled, so ein habasar nachal, so therefore the meat would not be eaten, and therefore we don't want that scenario. Therefore, we do not allow him to annul the vow. But the Gemara continues, Maskiv lo Rabbi Zeir. Rabbi Zeir asks the following question: V'yamai, why is that the case? Why is it a situation of hefsid kachim, Rabbi Zayin kachim, lizrok daman shelo lishman? Let's say you do the shechita and he annuls her vow. You should do the zrika of the blood, sprinkle the blood, not lishma. V'yater basar b'achila, and that actually would allow the meat to be eaten. Milo Tanya, did we not learn in the Braisa? Kivsei atzere sheshachtan shelo lishman. If you have the sheep of Shavuos, and let's say they were shechted not lishma with the wrong intention, or sheshachtan lifnei zmanan, or let's say you shechted them before the proper time, or lachar zmanan, or let's say they were shechted after the proper time, the halacha there is hadam yizrak, you sprinkle the blood, v'habasar yochal, and then the meat can be eaten. And we're talking about sprinkling the blood shelo lishman. There is a solution for this meat. V'im haisa Shabbos, and if it's Shabbos, lo yizrak, then you can't sprinkle on Shabbos. V'im zorak, but if you do sprinkle on Shabbos, hortze will be accepted. Lahakter emur and l'erev, and you have to burn the parts that get burned on the mizbeach. You'll have to burn those in the evening. And Rashi over here says, Milo Tanan, did we not learn Hadam Yizrak Shelo Lishman? That again, you could sprinkle the blood Shelo Lishman. And then it said, Vim Haisa Shabbos Lo Yizrak, but if it's Shabbos, then you can't sprinkle it Lefi Shein Habasar Nechel B'Shabbos. The reason for that is because the meat is not able to be eaten on Shabbos. She'ein Tzlias Kachim Doches HaShabbos, because the roasting of the meat of Kachim is not Doches Shabbos. Vim Zarak, and if you did sprinkle it on Shabbos, Hurtza, then it is going to be effective. Uvilvad She'emurin Makter L'Erev, as long as the innards of the meat, as long as those parts which are supposed to be burned on the Mizbeach will be burned on the Mizbeach in the evening. And so again, you see from over here that if you have a situation like this where the husband annuls the vow, let's say after the shechita of the animal, again, there is a solution. It shouldn't be considered a hefsid kachim or a bizayin kachim, because you can sprinkle the blood shelo lishman and you'll be able to eat the meat. And the Gemara says, Amri, the answer as follows: Ida shachat ola ushlamim. If the situation was where he first shechted the carbon ola or the carbon shlamim, hachanami, then actually you're correct. There really is a solution for the meat, and that solution is what we said above. Again, you'll sprinkle the blood shelo lishma. Elahachav ma'askinan. But over here, the case is kagon sheshachat chatas bereisha, that the first animal that was shechted, that was slaughtered, was actually the carbon chatas, and there you really do not have a solution, and that's why it would be a problem of bizayin kachim if the husband would nullify the vow. Kiretanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, and this is just being brought to show that you can do any one of the three karbanos first. Im gilach al achas mishloshtan yotze, if he shaved on any one of the three karbanos, then he's yotze, meaning it can be done in any order. Rashi over here says, Ida shachat ola shlam and bereisha, if the ola or shlam was shechted first. Hachanami de'ef shalom havil takanta bezrika. You're right, there would have been a solution with the sprinkling of the blood shelo lishman. Elahachi ko'amin alach. What I was talking about was the following case. Kagon the shachar chatas bereisha. The chatas was shechted first. The mefer labal. At that point in time, after the shechita, if the husband annuls her vow, Sulo hava leitakanta, there will be no solution to have a lekechatas sheneschapro bala. It would be the same thing as having a chatas where the owner already got a kapara. So now there's nothing that you can do with that chatas. Same thing over here. If the vow was annulled, it's the same thing as if there already was a kapara. Nothing. There's no solution for that carbon chatas. Again, how do we know that you can shecht any one of the animals first? As we learn, it says, if he shaves on any one of the three, he is going to be yotze. The order does not matter. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, when do we say that the husband can no longer annul the vow? That's when she reaches the point of shaving in terms of purity, meaning she ends the term of Nazirus in purity. But let's say she's bringing the karbanos, and she's doing the shaving because she became impure during her Nazirus. So at that point in time, still he's able to annul the vow. And then the Mishnah went on to say, for Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir says, even at the very end of the term when she's pure, and she's bringing her karbanos, Yafer, he is still able to annul the vow, because he can say, even after the karbanos are brought, but if she hasn't yet shaved, he can say, I don't want a wife who shaves her head, and therefore, even up till that point in time, he can still annul the vow, according to the Rebbe Meir. And the Gemara says, V'tanakama Amar Lach, and the Tanakama, they respond to you as follows. They'll say, no, it's not an issue in terms of the shaving. Once the karbanos are brought, he's no longer able to annul the vow, and he can't say that he doesn't want his wife to shave, because it's not a big deal. It's always possible that she can wear a wig, and therefore the husband really has no claim over here, and no right to annul the vow. Rabbi Meir Savar, but Rabbi Meir holds bepei nachas when it comes to a wig. I did the zuhama, since a wig it can become disgusting, it can become not nice, so lo nichole, so therefore the husband doesn't prefer it, and therefore he's able to still annul the vow. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ha'ish maderes beno benazir, a man is able to make his son be a nazir, v'yein ha'isha maderes es beno benazir, but a mother, a wife, she's not able to make her son become a nazir. Ketzad, how so? Gilach o shegilchuhu krovov. Now let's say the father makes the son a nazir, and then the son shaves, or his relatives shave him. It's a way of protesting the nazirus. Micha o shemichu krovov. Let's say he protests, or let's say his relatives protest on his behalf. And Rashi over here says, Gilach b'soch yemei naziruso. During the days of his nazirus, he shaves. O shegilchu krovov b'soch yemei naziruso. Or let's say his relatives shave him during the time of his nazirus. O shemicha ben toch yemei naziruso. Or let's say the son protests during the days of his nazirus. V'afilu b'yom ha'achron, and even in the last day. So in those situations, let's say that happens. The Mishnah continues, Haisalo behema mufreshes. Let's say he has a situation where an animal's already been separated, designated for the end of the term of his nazirus. So what happens to these animals now that the nazirus is undone? So hachatos tamus, so the chatos dies. Va'ola tikravola, that which was designated for the ola, it's brought as an ola. Ushlamim yikravu shlamim, and the shlamim is brought as a shlamim. V'necholin liyomechad, but it's eaten just for one day. Ve'einon tu'unin lechem, and there's no requirement to bring bread along with that shlamim, because again, he's not really a nazir. And Rashi says, O shemichu krovav, also let's say his relatives protest. Point is, hareza batlan naziruso. In these cases, the nazirus is nullified. Udmei chatos yelchu liyam hamelech, and the value of the chatos, it goes to the yam hamelech. And the Mishnah continues, Hayulo mostumen. Again, continuing along the same lines, let's say there's not an animal that's designated, but let's say there's money that was designated for the karbanos at the end of the term of the Nazirus. Yiplulin adav, as we've said, if you have mostumen, and the money wasn't specifically allocated, this money for that particular carbon, that money for the other particular carbon, but it was just general money. So in such a situation, that money is donated for the communal karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash. Most mefurashim, now let's say you have money that was designated, each part of the money was designated for specific karbanos. As we said, the value of the chatos goes liyam hamelech. Lo nenin v'lo mo'alin. The person is not able to get benefit, and there is no me'ila. Rashi over here says, Lo nenin v'lo mo'alin, kidamar mar, that's like the master said, chatos hamesos, udemei chatos, if you have either chatos that die, or the value of the chatos, ha'hochin liyam hamelech, meaning, let's say you have animals of carbon chatos that are not going to be brought as a chatos, they're going to be left to die, or let's say you have money of carbon chatos that cannot be used, like in this case, it can't be used for a carbon chatos, so it's going liyam hamelech. The halacha is, b'chulan lo nenin v'lo mo'alin. mo'alin. The halach in general is you can't get any benefit from that money, but there's no me'ila either. Lo nanin midrabanan. Number one, you can't get benefit, that's midrabanan. V'lo mo'alin, there's no me'ila mishum delav b'nei hakravaninu, because since it's not something that can be brought anymore in the mizbeach, so there's no longer a halacha of me'ila. So again, that's when it comes to the demei chatos, lo nanin v'lo mo'alin. Demei ola, if there's money that was set aside for the ola, yaviu ola, that's brought as an ola, u'mo'alin b'hen, there is me'ila in that. Demei shlamim, if there's money that was set aside for shlamim, yaviu shlamim, again, you bring it as a shlamim, you use that money for shlamim, v'ne'acholin liyom echad, and it's the shlamim is eaten for just one day, ve'einon tu'unin lechem, and there's no requirement of bread. In other words, the point is, again, it's eaten for one day with that same restriction as a shlamim of an actual nazir, but since it's not actually a shlamim being brought on behalf of a nazir who's finishing his term, so there's no requirement to bring bread along with the shlamim. And the Gemara says, ish in aval isha lo, if it's a father, so he's able to make his son who's a minor into a nazir, but the mother is not able to. My time, and what's the reason for this distinction? Rabbi Yochanan Amar halachi ben nazir. Rabbi Yochanan says this is a halacha by nazir. Rashi says halachi ben nazir shoish mazir v'lo isha. The father is able to make the child a nazir and not the wife. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, he says, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Tes Amud Aleph.